All right, so this is programming exercise 2, and in this in this exercise, we're going to be computing the letter grade based on a numeric value that the user types in. So it's again kind of requiring you to think about how to structure your branching in your if and else clauses. So you can, based on the user input, select among several different options of what to print out. So in our case, anything between 90 and 100 will be an A. Anything over an 80 will be a B. Over 70 is a C. Over 60 is a D, and anything less than that is an F. And we're gonna do a little checking of the user's input, and if they type in a value greater than 100 or some sort of a negative number or something like that, we'll just print an error message to them and exit the program. And in fact, that's probably where I'm going to start first. I'm just going to get that part of the program working. So we'll get our value here. So let's call it numeric equals input. Please enter grade 0 through 100. And remember that that's just a string, right? And so we're going to have a hard time comparing that in terms of seeing whether it's greater than or equal to 90 or something like that if it's just a string. So we could do int, but probably in this case float makes more sense. I mean, theoretically the user should be able to type in 91.5, and since it's not going to really harm us, it's not going to make our program any more complex. It's a nice idea to allow that. And the first thing I'll just do is make sure that it's not invalid. So if it's less than 0 or numeric is greater than 100, then we'll say print, sorry, invalid grade. And as I mentioned in the assignment statement, the exit command, exit open and close parentheses, we're calling a function with no parameters. We'll talk a lot more about functions later on. That'll just exit the system. It'll kill the program. One thing that people often do here, to just point out, if you're writing stuff like this, remember that that's not going to work. Each side of an OR clause or an OR operation needs to be a complete statement. Greater than 100 is not a complete statement. What's greater than 100? So even though when you say it out loud, you probably say if numeric is less than 0 or greater than 100, to the computer you need to be much more specific. You have to say if numeric is less than 0 or numeric is greater than 100. All right, so let's just run this. And if I type in 90, I won't get any output. But if I type in 110, and if I type in -6, I'll get an invalid grade. Okay, so far so good. So to be able to print out the letter grade, clearly we're going to use some if conditions. So let's start by just saying if numeric is greater than or equal to 90, print you got an A. And then I'll say if numeric is greater than or equal to 80, you got a B. Right? And this is kind of repetitive, right? This is basically going to be the same thing for C and for D. But hopefully, as I'm writing this, you're getting the sense that this isn't really going to quite work. If the user types in 95, certainly we're going to print out you got an A. It's greater than 90. The problem here is that each one of these if clauses, though, are totally independent of each other. So they're all, you think of them as separate questions. We're going to ask all 4 of these questions no matter what the user types in. So if I were to run this, and I type in 95, not only did I get an A, but I also got a B, C, and a D. And that's because 95 is greater than each one of these values that I'm comparing it against. And each one of these questions will be asked. Now, one option would be to say, well, if numeric is greater than or equal to 80 and numeric is less than or equal to 90, right? And that actually would work a little bit better. And maybe, I guess, less than, right? Not less than or equal to. So otherwise 90 or 80 would print out multiple times. And now this will work a little bit more effectively. But we need the F, right? So what happens if none of these are true? Right, so you might start to say, well, okay, that's easy. I can just say else print you got an F. Yes. Sorry, you failed. All right, but that doesn't make any sense because that's just an if condition here. So in this case, if I was to run this, I'd get an A, and then I'd get a print message that says sorry, I failed, because the 90 is greater than or equal to the 95 is greater than or equal to 90. I'll miss on all of these tests, and I'll miss on this, and go into the else clause. So I can fix that. I can say if numeric is less than 60, right, and that'll help. But I think the more important part about trying to use that else clause is we were kind of actually on the right path. I've broken these all out into distinct, independent questions, and I've gone through a lot of effort to write kind of both sides of the range of values that each one of these if conditions are going to work with. And I'm actually creating a lot more work than I need to for myself. The best solution here would be to say these are all connected. And as soon as I pass one test, I don't need to bother with any of the rest. So the way we do that is using the elif clause in Python. So if I say if the numeric is greater than 90, if it is, then I'm going to print this out, and I'm going to skip now all of these else clauses. And we're going to deal with this in a second. If it is not greater than 90, then I'll check it over here. Now, what's important here, though, is that this elif, this numeric greater than 80, will only be evaluated if this failed, if that test failed. That's important because it allows us to get rid of this. We don't have to recheck. We know that numeric has to be less than 90 because otherwise we would have fallen into this branch and we would have skipped the rest. So now we can actually take out all that extra work that we just did to get things work. We're going to get the same exact example, but it's going to be the same exact answer, but it's going to be a lot nicer code. It's going to be a lot less code. And of course, now since these are all strung together, that else clause that I started out with is going to work. Because now if none of these tests pass, the else clause will grab the rest. That'll catch everything else. If any one of these, if the user gets a 73, we're going to print out C and we're going to skip everything else. So now 95, 85, 70, 60, 34, and we've got it. Right. So what you want to take away from this example is, first off, that there's probably going to be a lot of different ways to write your programs. We're moving beyond just the simple straight line programs now, and everybody's code is going to look slightly different. And that'll only get more true as we proceed throughout the semester. So there's probably multiple ways to get the right output. But in this particular program, this is absolutely going to be a much more effective approach to make good use of our else if clauses. You can do it with just the standard if, but you're probably working a lot more than than you really need to. And at the end of the day, we want to write our code in somewhat as few lines possible, because it reduces the error, it reduces the complexity, and it helps us avoid sort of going in circles in terms of our logic.